Ladies and gentlemen, rejection is one of the most painful experiences we all face in life. It stings when we're turned down for a job, when our ideas are dismissed, or when someone we care about walks away. But what if I told you that rejection is not something to fear, but rather a tool to build unshakable resilience? The ancient Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, faced rejection, failure and disappointment just like we do. But they developed a mindset that allowed them to handle it with strength, wisdom and grace. And today, I want to share how you can handle rejection like a Stoic. Control what you can. Focus on effort, not results. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism is recognizing the difference between what is within our control and what is not. When facing rejection, it is crucial to understand that we cannot dictate how others will respond to us, but we can always control how we prepare, how we act, and how we react. Too often people tie their sense of success to external validation, measuring their worth by whether they get the job, win the opportunity, or gain someone's approval. This mindset creates unnecessary suffering because it places our happiness in the hands of forces beyond our influence. Instead, the Stoic way is to focus on effort rather than outcomes. Did you put in the work? Did you show up prepared? Did you give your best? If the answer is yes, then no rejection can truly defeat you. By shifting your focus to what you can control, your discipline, resilience and perseverance, you liberate yourself from the emotional weight of disappointment. In doing so, rejection becomes just another event, not a defining moment of failure, but a stepping stone to improvement and growth. Rejection is not personal, it's about circumstances, not your worth. One of the biggest mistakes people make when facing rejection is assuming that it is a direct reflection of their value as a person. When we don't get the job, when someone declines our offer, or when a relationship doesn't work out, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "I'm not good enough." But Stoicism teaches us to detach our self-worth from external outcomes. Rejection is rarely as personal as it feels in the moment. It is often the result of timing, preferences, or circumstances beyond our control. A company may have chosen someone with more experience, not because you lacked ability, but because they had a specific need. A person may not reciprocate your feelings, not because you are unworthy of love, but because of their own personal journey. The truth is, people's decisions are shaped by countless factors, most of which have nothing to do with you. The Stoic approach is to see rejection as neutral, just an event, not a statement about your value. Instead of internalizing it as failure, recognize that rejection is part of life's natural course. It does not define you, how you respond to it does. See it as training. Every rejection makes you stronger. Rejection is not the end of the road. It is a lesson, a test and a form of training. The Stoics believe that obstacles and hardships are opportunities for growth, and rejection is no different. Every time you are turned away, dismissed, or told no, you are being given a chance to become stronger, wiser and more resilient. Just like an athlete builds muscle by pushing against resistance, you build mental and emotional strength by facing setbacks. Instead of viewing rejection as a failure, see it as practice. Each rejection forces you to reflect, improve, and refine your approach. If you didn't get the job, maybe you can sharpen your skills. If your idea was rejected, maybe you can present it better next time. If a relationship didn't work out, maybe you can learn more about yourself and what you truly need. The key is to keep going, to treat each rejection as part of the process, rather than a final verdict. Those who embrace this mindset become unshakable because they understand that rejection is not a sign to quit, it's a sign to grow. Use logic, not emotion. Analyze the situation rationally. Rejection often triggers an emotional response, pain, disappointment, frustration, or even self-doubt. It's natural to feel these things, but Stoicism teaches that emotions should not control our decisions or perceptions. Instead, we must step back and analyze the situation with logic, rather than reacting impulsively. When faced with rejection, ask yourself, is this truly as bad as it feels? What are the real reasons behind this? Will this moment matter in a year? More often than not, rejection is not a catastrophe, but simply a momentary setback. By looking at it objectively, you take away its power to harm you. The Stoics believed that suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. If you assume rejection means you're not good enough, you will suffer. But if you see it as a neutral event, one that offers insight and direction, you free yourself from unnecessary pain. Reframing rejection with logic allows you to make better decisions, improve where needed, and move forward without carrying emotional baggage. The more you train your mind to respond with reason rather than emotion, the stronger and more resilient you become. Love your fate. Amor fati. Embrace rejection as part of your path. Amor fati, which means love your fate, is a core Stoic principle that teaches us to embrace everything that happens, both the good and the bad, as necessary and meaningful parts of our journey. It is not just about accepting events. It is about fully embracing them, as if we had chosen them ourselves. This mindset is particularly powerful when dealing with rejection, a moment that often makes us question our abilities, our worth, and even our future. But what if, instead of resisting rejection, you welcomed it as an essential piece of your personal growth? What if you trusted that every closed door was leading you exactly where you needed to go? Too often, people see rejection as a sign that they are not good enough, or that they have failed. But in reality, rejection is simply life steering us in a different direction, one that we may not have chosen, but one that is ultimately necessary for our development. Imagine a person applying for a dream job, only to be rejected. At that moment, it may feel like a painful failure, but what if that rejection pushes them to acquire new skills, refine their approach, and eventually land an even better opportunity? What if the rejection was not a setback, but a setup for something greater? Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This means that everything rejection, failure, disappointment, can be fuel for growth if we choose to see it that way. When you practice amor fati, you stop seeing rejection as an unfair obstacle and start seeing it as a necessary part of your story. You stop fighting reality and instead align yourself with it, learning and evolving with every challenge. There is deep peace in this mindset. When you love your fate, you no longer waste time complaining about what could have been. You no longer fear rejection, because you understand that it is not an enemy, it is a teacher. Every rejection refines you, redirects you, and strengthens you. It is life's way of testing your commitment to your goals and shaping you into the person you need to become. Instead of saying, "Why did this happen to me?" start saying, "This happened for me." The next time you face rejection, remind yourself, "This is part of the journey. This is making me stronger. This is leading me somewhere better." Embrace it, love it. Trust that one day you will look back and see that rejection was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. Build inner confidence. True strength comes from within. One of the greatest lessons of Stoicism is that true confidence does not come from external validation, achievements, or the approval of others. It comes from within. Too often, people base their self-worth on things outside their control: getting a promotion, being accepted into a social circle, receiving praise, or being chosen over someone else. But the moment their efforts are met with rejection, they begin to doubt themselves. This is a fragile way to live, because it makes your sense of self dependent on forces beyond your control. The Stoics teach that real confidence is not about never failing or always being accepted. It is about knowing that your value remains unchanged regardless of the outcome. Rejection can shake the confidence of those who have built their self-esteem on external validation. But for someone who has cultivated inner confidence, rejection is merely an event, not a verdict. A Stoic understands that their worth does not increase when they are accepted, nor does it decrease when they are rejected. Marcus Aurelius wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Confidence comes from mastering your mind, not from controlling how others perceive you. If you place your sense of worth in things beyond your control, you will always be at the mercy of external circumstances. But if you develop self-respect based on your own effort, character, and values, nothing can shake you. Building inner confidence requires shifting your mindset from "I hope they accept me" to "I accept myself." It requires reminding yourself that your worth is not determined by one job application, one failed relationship, or one moment of rejection. Confidence is built through self-discipline, continuous improvement, and the ability to stand firm in who you are, regardless of what others say or do. Instead of seeking validation, seek growth. Instead of trying to be chosen, choose yourself. The strongest people are not those who have never been rejected, but those who have been rejected and still believe in themselves. They understand that rejection is an opinion, not a fact. They know that a single setback does not define their potential. True confidence comes from the knowledge that you are constantly evolving, learning, and improving. When you realize that your value is inherent and not dependent on anyone else's approval, you become unshakable. No rejection, no failure, and no criticism can break you, because your strength does not come from the outside world, it comes from within. Reframe as redirection. Rejection guides you to something better. Rejection often feels like a closed door, a painful stop on the path to something we deeply wanted. It can leave us questioning our abilities, our decisions, and even our worth. But what if rejection is not a stop at all? What if it is actually a sign pointing us in a different direction, one that will lead to something even better? The Stoics believed that we suffer not because of events themselves, but because of how we interpret them. Instead of seeing rejection as failure, we can choose to see it as redirection, a course correction that is ultimately guiding us toward where we are meant to be. Life is full of moments when we think we know what's best for us, only to later realize that what we wanted was not what we truly needed. Perhaps you didn't get the job you wanted, but instead, you found a better opportunity elsewhere. Maybe a relationship didn't work out, but that experience taught you valuable lessons that prepared you for something greater. Often the things we perceive as setbacks are actually setting us up for future success. We just don't see it in the moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, what seems like an obstacle is often the very thing that propels us forward. Reframing rejection as redirection requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of dwelling on what was lost, focus on what opportunities are now available. When you trust that rejection is simply life's way of guiding you toward something better suited for you, you begin to welcome it instead of fearing it. Every no is not a dead end. It is a signpost leading you toward a better yes. Many of the most successful people in history faced rejection before achieving greatness. Writers whose books were turned down by publishers, athletes who were cut from teams, entrepreneurs who were told their ideas would never work. These individuals did not let rejection define them. Instead, they used it as redirection, pushing forward until they found the right path. You have the same choice. You can see rejection as proof that you are not enough, or you can see it as proof that something better is waiting for you. The next time you face rejection, remind yourself this is not an ending, but a turning point. It is life's way of nudging you toward a path that is more aligned with your true potential. Trust the process. Keep moving forward. The rejection you feel today might be the very thing that leads you to your greatest opportunity tomorrow. Indifference to outcomes. Focus on action, not acceptance. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is to detach from outcomes and focus solely on what is within our control, our actions, our effort, and our mindset. Too often, people tie their sense of self-worth to external results, being accepted, winning approval, or achieving a particular goal. When rejection happens, It feels devastating because they have placed their happiness in something beyond their control. But the Stoics remind us that true peace comes from focusing on what we can do, not on how others will respond. When you develop indifference to outcomes, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of success and failure, allowing yourself to act with confidence regardless of the result. This does not mean you should not care about your goals or aspirations. It simply means that you should not be emotionally attached to whether things go your way. Instead, your energy should be directed toward the process, doing your best, staying disciplined and acting with integrity. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, taught that we should concern ourselves only with what we can control. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This mindset helps us approach rejection with calmness rather than distress. If you apply for a job, your responsibility is to prepare well and present yourself in the best way possible. Whether the employer selects you or not is beyond your control. If you express interest in someone and they do not reciprocate, that is their choice. Your only responsibility was to act honestly. When you stop being attached to outcomes, rejection loses its sting. You start seeing each action as valuable in itself, rather than only valuable if it produces the result you desire. A Stoic focuses on the effort, not the applause. When an artist creates a masterpiece, they do not control how the world will receive it. When an athlete trains, they cannot control whether they will win every competition. What they can control is the work they put in, the dedication they show, and the attitude they bring. And that is enough. Indifference to outcomes is not about apathy. It is about inner freedom. It allows you to take risks, to pursue opportunities, and to step forward without fear of rejection, because you know that your success is not determined by external validation, but by the effort you put in. When you focus on action rather than acceptance, you become resilient. You realize that rejection is not a failure, it is simply part of the journey. And with each step forward, no matter the result, you grow stronger. Practice negative visualization. Prepare for rejection to lessen its sting. One of the most powerful techniques in Stoicism is premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. This practice involves mentally preparing for setbacks, difficulties, and yes, even rejection before they happen. While modern self-help often encourages only positive thinking, the Stoics believe that true strength comes from anticipating challenges and developing resilience in advance. By regularly contemplating the possibility of rejection, you reduce its emotional impact when it actually occurs. Instead of being caught off guard or overwhelmed by disappointment, you face rejection with calm acceptance, knowing that you have already prepared for it in your mind. This does not mean you should dwell on negative outcomes or adopt a pessimistic mindset. Rather, it is about training yourself to handle adversity with composure. Suppose you are preparing for a job interview, an important business pitch, or a romantic proposal. Instead of assuming everything will go perfectly, take a moment to consider the possibility that things may not go your way. Imagine yourself receiving a rejection email, hearing a no, or being passed over for someone else. Then ask yourself, how would I respond? What would I do next? By running through these scenarios in your mind, you prepare yourself emotionally, ensuring that if rejection does happen, it does not paralyze or devastate you. Seneca, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, advised, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." This means that when we mentally prepare for setbacks, they lose their ability to control us. The shock is removed, and we are left with a clear mind to take the next logical step forward. Athletes use this technique all the time. Before a big competition, they visualize both success and failure, so that if they lose, they are not crushed by the experience. They are ready to analyze, adjust, and improve. When you practice negative visualization regularly, you develop an unshakable mindset. You no longer fear rejection because you have already faced it in your mind and accepted it as part of life. Instead of seeing rejection as something to avoid at all costs, you begin to view it as a natural experience that you are more than capable of handling. This allows you to take bigger risks, pursue your goals with confidence, and move forward without hesitation. The key to mastering this practice is balance. You visualize rejection not to discourage yourself, but to strengthen yourself. You remind yourself that while rejection is possible, it is not the end of the road. The more you prepare for rejection, the less it can hurt you. And when rejection does come, as it inevitably will, you will be ready, not with fear or despair, but with the steady resolve of someone who has already conquered it in their mind. Never let it define you. You are more than any one setback. Rejection can feel deeply personal, as if it is a statement about who you are and what you are worth. But Stoicism teaches that no single event, no failure, no missed opportunity, no from someone else can ever define you. You are not your setbacks. You are not the job you didn't get, the relationship that didn't work out, or the opportunity that passed you by. You are something far greater than any individual moment in your life. True strength comes from recognizing that rejection is just one chapter in a much larger story, not the entire book. It is easy to let rejection shape the way we see ourselves. A person who is turned down for multiple job interviews might start to believe they are not talented enough. An entrepreneur whose ideas are repeatedly dismissed may begin to doubt their abilities. Someone who experiences heartbreak might start to think they are unworthy of love. But these are false narratives that arise only when we give rejection more power than it deserves. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means that no external event, not even rejection, can truly harm us unless we allow it to. Think of the most successful and influential people in history. Almost all of them faced rejection at some point. Writers whose books were turned down by dozens of publishers, athletes who were cut from teams, inventors whose ideas were ridiculed, none of them allowed rejection to define them. Instead, they understood that rejection was simply a moment, not a reflection of their worth. They continued forward, improving, refining, and persisting until they reached success. The key is to separate rejection from identity. Just because you were not chosen for something does not mean you are unworthy. Just because one door closed does not mean another will not open. Who you are is not determined by a single failure, but by how you respond to it. A Stoic does not say, "I was rejected, so I must not be good enough." A Stoic says, "I was rejected, so what can I learn? How can I grow? What's next?" When you stop letting rejection define you, you gain the freedom to try again without fear. You become resilient, unshaken by setbacks, because you know they do not diminish you. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of rejection, but as someone who is constantly evolving, and in the end it is not the rejections that define you, it is the way you rise after them. Rejection is not the end of your story, it is simply a test of your resilience, a lesson in redirection, and an opportunity for growth. Every great achiever, every strong individual, and every person who has ever made an impact has faced rejection and refused to let it define them. You have that same strength within you. You are more than any single setback, and your worth is not determined by anyone else's approval. So stand tall in the face of rejection, learn from it, grow from it, and use it as fuel to keep moving forward. Trust that every no is leading you to a better yes. The path to success, fulfillment and greatness is not free of rejection, it is paved with it. But if you stay committed to your purpose, remain focused on what you can control, and refuse to let rejection shake your confidence, nothing will stop you. Keep going, your journey is far from over, and the best is still ahead.